real success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the Hitstreak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and I've got an extra special treat for you in the Hit Lab with me today, folks. Check it out. I have the Executive Vice President of the Dufresne Spenser Group, a 3-time author. He is a Vanderbilt University basketball alumni, and at one point in time, at least, we know he had 6 world records for trick shots in the game of basketball. The trick shots heard around the world. I've got the one and only Drew Maddux. How we doing, baby?
Man, I'm doing great, Nick. It is so good to be with you. I'm honored to be here. And here's one thing I know for sure. If I could be certain of one thing today, there is no 2 guys doing a podcast anywhere in the world that has shoe game like we do today.
That's right. If you're watching with us, it's a Air Jordan convention.
That's right. It's March Madness, so we're paying our homage to the GOAT himself. You know,
absolutely.
Great to be with you, buddy.
Man, well, it's so cool to have you. Been keeping up with you for a very long time. Folks. I mention this all the time, that the most powerful weapon I have, the most powerful tool in my tool belt when it comes to business is this podcast, because I get to hang out with so many amazing people. And Drew's somebody that I've wanted to connect with for quite some time. And because of this platform, we're able to make it happen, right? So big shout out to all of our podcasters out there. Big shout out to Drew for taking the time to be here. Dude, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. We have so many common circles that we have run in over the course of our lives. So I'm so excited to be here with you today, and once again, honored to be in the lab with you.
Well, let's see here. So I mentioned that you were a Vanderbilt Commodore alum, right? So, but you're a 3rd generation Vanderbilt Commodore alum.
Yeah.
So who are the 2 that came before you?
Yeah, so my dad, Ray Maddux, graduated in 1973, and my grandfather, God rest his soul, Ed Maddux, played football and basketball, and because of the war, graduated in 1948. And the significance of those dates are, I graduated in 1998, so we were all 25 years apart. So I was 50 years for my grandfather, 25 for my father, and to be multi-generation at an institution that has meant so much to our family. Obviously, it was a tremendous honor. Every single day I got to put on the back black and gold.
Man, no kidding. And but no pressure. So are they expecting another one?
I know,
years?
Exactly, right? You know, it's like for me and my wife, like which one of your kiddos are going to be, the one that's going to carry it on. But no, all kidding aside, it was an incredible experience. It was something that was a vision that I actually established as a kindergarten student in Miss Sandy Venable's classroom at Nanny Berry Elementary. That was what I wanted to be when I grew up, with the number 45 on my chest, which was my father's number. And I was able to walk into the reality of that vision from all those years earlier. And to be able to fulfill that was just, it literally was a fairy tale and a dream come true.
Wow. Well, I mean, there's so much so many directions we could go to start. I mean, 3-time author, executive vice president of a very prominent business. We got the trick shots. We got the.
Does that mean you're just a jack of all of this, but a master of nothing? Is that what that means?
Well, I mean, based on the track record, I would say you're a master of many, right? So, let's just start off with your family, right? Yeah. So I know you got 5 kids, been married 25 years. Well, let's just start with that, because that's kind of the foundation, the backbone of everything you do, right?
Yeah, obviously faith being number one.
Yep.
My faith, my personal faith. But then obviously family would be next. And it starts with my wife, Tara. She's incredible, insanely awesome in every way. She is the backbone of our family. She is the foundation by which everything exists in our family. We'll celebrate 25 years this year. And so we're so thankful for all the wonderful things that God has done in, through, and around that relationship. And we have 5 kids. We have our first. This is a new experience this year, Nick, in that our oldest will graduate college this year, so it makes me really, really old. Yes, Emma is going to graduate from Samford University in Birmingham. I have a freshman in college as well, Ava. She goes to Samford as well.
Wow.
Sarah James is a 10th grader at Christ Pres Academy here in Nashville. And then we have 2 boys. Patrick and Nicholas are both in 8th grade over at Christ Presbyterian Academy as well.
Man, I got, our 13-year-old, we have a 13-year-old, and our daughter will be 2 in the month of April. So, and our 13-year-old was always like the most honest, picking him up from school. As soon as I'd open up the back door, he'd be like, "Dad, I didn't get any check marks today, and I ate all my lunch." Or if he did, he'd be like, the teacher called me out. He was the most honest person. And so there was a lot of trust. And now with all the challenges of being a teenager and all the racket that's coming his way in all these different directions, it's just just when you think you got parenting kind of figured out, you don't.
No. Well, I don't know. You guys obviously are starting to have these conversations with one entering their teenage years, but there's no tougher time in the history of time to be a teenager in our country. And obviously they're given these things called iPhones, which could be described as a weapon in their hand. Because so much
a loaded
weapon, so much destruction can be done with that device.
Yeah.
So much good can be done, obviously. Right. But every single day, you have to think about the pressure that these kids are dealing with. And I don't mean to get on this soapbox about this, but this is something that I'm very passionate about, because every single day they're walking into this experience of reality of compare and compete. And it's this elevation of self. And the only way to do that is to push somebody else down in order to elevate myself. So in order to do that, I have to use this thing called social media as a tool to promote this highlight film of something that may or may not exist in order to present to the world that I'm cooler than you, that I'm better than you, that I have more than you. And it's a constant pressure that these kids are dealing with every single day. And so, you as mom and dad, just thank you for what you're doing. What we're trying to do in the lives of our kids is that their identity is not driven by that device, that their identity is found in Christ ultimately. And then, it's found in the way that we're going to love and that we're going to be in relationship with each other.
Absolutely, man. You can never go wrong when you starve your distractions and feed your faith. Amen. Man. You know what I mean? Well, let's connect some dots for some folks, because there's so many, like as I mentioned before, there's so many places we could start and directions we could go. Let's just take them back a little bit, right? So obviously, I asked you before we started recording how many other sports you played. You said, well, I played everything, but none of them that mattered. The one that mattered was basketball, right? So that was the first time you kind of got put on, I don't know, the pedestal, I guess, a little bit, right?
Yeah, I encourage this with families and with parents, multiple sports. There's so many wonderful experiences that came from that, even at an early age with me in youth sports, and so many incredible coaches that were volunteers, at the time that really invested in my story. But when the stakes got higher and I got to be it was really 8th rising 9th grade was when I realized basketball was really something I was really gifted at, and decided to chase with everything. I had this dream that had been established early in my story to play basketball at Vanderbilt. It was just what I wanted to do. It was a dream I wanted to chase with everything I had, and I was willing to. If you know me, and we'll get to know each other here, but when it comes time to invest, I'm an all-in, push your chips to the middle of the table, and I'm gonna chase it with everything I got, and so I made that decision.
Yeah.
Really rising into high school, that basketball was going to be my single focus of what I wanted to pursue.
When the importance of going all in, and I was talking to this with Coach Corbin when he was on about how it's hard to find a nicer, more authentic and kind individual until they say play ball.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously winning matters, and he's very competitive in those situations, and it's so hard to find. There's a balance that you got to have between that competitive drive and then how you treat people and so on and so forth. So, and honestly, man, I feel like you're a master of that just from what I've seen, and you're teaching these kids, all that kind of stuff. That it's there. I mean, I don't know which one's worse. Somebody that will do anything to win, or somebody that will just, it's okay if, just
right.
Ed Milet said winning or fun is fun, but winning's more fun than fun is fun.
Absolutely. No doubt. And I think, it's that constant balance. I still have that triggered in my life. I'm extremely competitive. I mean, if there was a basket in the lab right now and we started going one-on-one, you'll see, the dark side of me really come out, because I'm extremely competitive. I think what I've tried to do as I've gotten older and just with the investment of a lot of people that have helped me process through this, was my whole life I was driven by, much like many athletes that perform at a high level, this identity driven approach to living that it wasn't just performance, it was the achievement that led to the way that ultimately I felt about myself and the way I felt like others felt about me. And the scary thing in that, as I've gone back and processed through that, Nick, is this: it wasn't so much about shooting up with the addiction of people's approval or applause to the performance. It was my sense of feeling safe and secure. It was my way through achievement that I didn't feel alone, that I was a part of something. And it was a constant pressure to have to deal with that every single day, because literally your livelihood's on the line based on how if a ball goes through a hoop. Right. And it wasn't okay just to win. You had to be perfect, because perfection was the measurement versus failure. It wasn't like 99% or 98% wasn't good enough. Everything had to be perfect, because once again, my safety, my security was on the line based on how I played between two, the lines on the court. Yeah. So what I tried to do as I got older, and as I began to realize and recognize that and process through that, was through coaching 15 to 18-year-old boys and ushering them into manhood. I wanted them to really release that performance-driven approach to life. They were dealing with enough pressure. They were dealing with enough that life throws at them, that the culture throws at them, trying to live up to what they believed, a man looked like. And so what we tried to create was this safe environment where they could be themselves, where they could bring all that they are, and they understood that we loved them enough not to allow them to stay there, that we were going to call you up to excellence in a healthy way. And we were going to cultivate the strengths that each individual person in the room had, built on the parable of the talents. That it wasn't a compare, compete, how many stars are by your name, or you're All-State, or you're Mr. Basketball, you're being recruited by this. That's how the world will define. Right. We wanted our locker room to be flipped to a manhood classroom, and to realize that everybody brought something of value to the table. And we wanted to recognize that, cultivate that, and pour kerosene on that, so that they could go make an impact in their specific way in the world that they're going to go live, work, and play.
That's that's the best thing about sports, is such a small percentage actually make a living and make their impact on the field or on the court, but it's the lessons that they learn on the field or on the court that helps them excel later when they're going to be a person of influence or have an impact.
Absolutely. I mean, you played sports at a high level. I did as well. And now I'm a husband of 25 years and a dad of 5, and involved in the community and church and all these things, and part of businesses and leadership teams and leading people. But how much of what we do every day still comes back to those lessons that we learned all those years ago. And it was amazing, because I had people that cared so deeply for me, that saw me in my darkest moments, the moments when I needed to be picked up the most. Guys like Jeff Forehand, who I know that very, very well. That's right. Or guys like a Randy Heron or a Chip Dodd that saw me there, but didn't judge me, but wanted to call me up and out of that into a way, into the light, to say, hey man, I want you to live life more free. I want you to live life released of all of that fear and all that shame and all that guilt that performance brings up. And I want you to be free in your approach to unleash all that you have on the world. And oh, by the way, as you're doing that and unlocking that potential inside of your story, you're going to horizontally help other kids in that locker room, and coaches and families understand what it means to do that as well. And so it's just this incredible opportunity that sports affords you in a way that you don't have the captive hearts and minds that really sport creates.
Folks, we're hanging with the one and only Drew Maddux today, world record holder, 3-time author, EVP, basketball coach, husband, father. This is fantastic. Check it out, folks. You can check out his website, CoachDrewMaddux.com. That's with 2 D's, and on Instagram at DrewMaddux45. Right, so you can catch a lot of things that we're talking about today. So let me ask a question before we get back into the story here. So you mentioned 5 kids. So I have 2. Yeah. And they're spread apart. So literally like our 13-year-old, it's almost like having a full-time babysitter on staff. He helps out so much. It's great. You had 3, which we're still playing man-to-man defense. Yeah. You guys had to go to a zone. And then two more showed up. Tell me about that. Like what called you guys? Like 3 is a handful. It's hard.
Yeah.
What called you guys to do that?
Yeah.
I'm dying to know.
Yeah. Are you talking specifically about the adoption?
Yes,
story?
adoption.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, gosh, there's a lot to tell you about that story, but there was some pivotal people that came into our story at critical moments. In 2007, 2008, 2009, I coached a young man named Will Franklin Chapman. His parents were Stephen Curtis Chapman and Mary Beth Chapman, and they have an incredible ministry called Show Hope in the world of really attacking the orphan crisis. What they would do is really raise money and provide grants and foundational funding for families that wanted to pursue that area if you were called to adopt. And so just fell in love with their ministry and started to become more and more familiar with the orphan crisis, the world of foster care, and the great need that existed in the world. And so through their story, and then specifically on the specific area of the world that we adopted from, which was Jinja, Uganda, there was a young lady from here in Brentwood named Katie Davis. And she began a ministry called Amazima Ministries in Jinja, Uganda. It was an educational, healthcare, and feeding program for local kids in that area of the world. And so through the Chapman family and through Katie Davis's story specifically of what she was doing, we began to understand this great need in the world. And so, at the time, there was about 150 million orphans in the world.
Wow.
And you can get caught up in the massiveness of that number. I mean, it can look as vast as the ocean.
Yeah.
And so what my wife and I began to pray about was specifically, God, what do you want our part to be in that story? Obviously, you've brought these people, these experiences, these ministries.
Yeah.
You've shined a bright spotlight into this part, and you've gotten us. You've risen a passion inside of us.
Yeah.
For what? What do you want us to do with this? We can't affect 150 million. But God said you can affect 2. And just like drops of water that exist in the ocean, we may not be able to make a difference in 150 million, but we can make a difference in the lives of 2. And what we found since that moment, we landed back in the United States, December 15th, 2010, these 2 little toddler boys that are now big 15-year-old young men. We had no idea that it would be 100x the impact that we thought we could have on their lives that they've done for us, Nick. I mean, they have radically changed our house forever. I mean, the way that we love, the way that we celebrate, the way that we honor, things that are part of their culture and their DNA that they've brought to our house, life would not be as rich or as fulfilling. I can't even imagine if those 2 boys weren't a part of our story.
Well, that was that was what I was going to ask you, because there's you hear a lot of people seeking generational wealth. You hear a lot of pastors preach about generational sin, and I ask myself all the time, with my son, and there's certain things that it just means to be a Hyder man, and there's certain things that we do. Everybody just expects him to play baseball and do certain things. And then when you have that, it had to change the whole thought process of raising, probably how you looked at your own and treated your own your own 3 kids that came from you guys, right? When you brought them in. And you know what else too? We talk about the ripple effect and how the smallest ripple, it doesn't stop until it hits something.
That's right.
And so maybe you guys have inspired through your journey. How many other kids have received some hope because of your journey and your experience? By doing that through basically just taking on leadership at the end of the day, and doing that.
Yeah, it's something that's it hits the core values of our family. When my wife and I go through a process every year and we revisit this as it relates to our life plan for the year and what do we want to be remembered for. We go through a legacy process every single year. We split categorically into different areas of our life, and one of the things we wanted to make sure that we were remembered for was we lived every day pursuing our core values as a family. And those are that we wanted to make sure that we loved unconditionally, that we served generously, and that we lived passionately, and that we chased whatever resource that we had at our disposal, our relationships, finances, network, whatever that looked like, thought, wisdom, knowledge, experience. We wanted to, back to it, put it all in the middle of the table and say, we're all in. Our family is moving all in to the point where, it's going to look a little different. It may feel a little different. This is something that's abnormal. It's radical. It's outside of our comfort. But we are called to do this for such a time as this, for a reason that is far bigger than anything that we could imagine. And now I can't even imagine what life would be like and what they've done for our house. And so the lives of my girls, the lives of me as a dad, my wife as a mom, us in our marriage. I mean, every facet that you would measure fulfillment and joy and gladness. I mean, it has just poured so much living water onto all of those areas of our life.
Man. And, the folks, like you heard about all the things that this family has accomplished. And then, everybody that has kids is like, man, 3 is literally a handful and 4 and to bring on 2 new lives and all the risk that can come along with that from, resentment or anything that, you know what I'm saying? But that just goes to show you that, man, when you feed your faith, there's nothing best, greatest gift, man. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that was the other piece. The subplot to the main plot was what God was doing in my faith, what he was doing in our family's faith, that this is beyond us. I mean, for all of this to line up, you think about this. I mean, you have 2 kids that were left totally abandoned, thousands of miles away on the other side of the world.
Yeah. For
things to line up, for them to get in the right caretaker's hands at the right time in the right place, and then for God to be raising up a family that, saw 2 being added to their family, and then all the governmental things, the judicial things, the paperwork.
Yeah,
I mean, all the things, all the details that had to line up in that. So you're talking about like increasing your faith and feeding your faith. There was many days that all we had were questions.
Yeah.
There were no answers. The only answer was him.
That's right.
That was it. That was the only answer. That's the only way that you could even explain what was going on, because by the world's standards, you would not understand or comprehend what was happening.
That's right.
Except in an economy that doesn't make sense to us.
That's right, man. That's incredible. So, all right. Well, let's get them back to again. People are like, "This sounds great. I want to do that." How is the big question. So. And what they're going to find out is like, everybody's just people, man. So even the most successful people, a lot of their journey is just like so many other people's. It's just they fought harder for what they believed in, or they just took it one extra step that somebody else would do. There was a guy that played baseball for the Braves in the 90s named Mark Lemke. And he was I'll never forget it. They were interviewing him one time. He was small. He shouldn't have been there. You know what I mean? Everybody was bigger than him, stronger, faster, everything. And that guy played for a long time in the dynasty. And they interviewed him one time. They said, "Man, like, how'd you get here?" He goes, "I was the last one standing. I outlasted everybody." And that was kind of my. There was so many players, even at the high school and even college level, that had more tools and were better players than I was.
Yeah.
But they didn't play as long. It happens every day.
Yeah. I love the thought of every day. And so, one of the things that I talk about all the time, and just to people as we're trying to coach them up to the levels that they ultimately can get to, a lot of times they can't see it, is excellence every day. I mean, excellence every day. Are you an everyday guy? Can you show up and do it every day, regardless of what happened last night, how much sleep you got last night, what happened on the last play, last shot, last meeting, last conversation, last sales call? Can you show up and do it again? Are you an everyday person that is focused on, dedicated, and obsessed with excellence?
Yeah.
And this is me. If you're not about that, I have a hard time being in a relationship with you, because I have no time for mediocre or average. Like I want people that are going to push me in my calling in pursuit of excellence, just like I want to push you into your calling of excellence as well. That's
right. And it's hard. It's so hard to it's hard to be around people when they're just going in a different place than you are. At the end of the day, they're just on a different path. Man, that's so let's see. There was so much in there, and I had a really good thought. This happens from time to time, but when chasing excellence, doing it every single day, being last man standing. So this is what I do. I'm rehashing my thoughts right here, live on the show.
I love it.
While we're doing it. Well, anyways, I'll come back to it. So you are. Playing basketball, obviously you're figuring out this is something I'm passionate about, something I want to do, and you get to school and you found success, right? Yep. So was playing past college and basketball, was that something you were chasing? When did you make that paradigm shift? Yep. Walk me through that.
Yeah, it was probably the first time in my basketball career I didn't get what I wanted.
Okay.
So this is a really, really cool part to the story as well. So my 11th game into my college career at Rupp Arena against the University of Kentucky, I started my first game at Vanderbilt, and I consecutively started every game the rest of my career.
Wow.
Injuries, nothing, and it was an SEC record at the time. I don't know if it is anymore or not, but I started every game the rest of my career to the point where I ascended my senior year. I was first team All SEC, honorable mention All American, had a great year. 1998, if you go back and look in the historical record book, was the first and only time, now there's been a second, but that the NBA had a lockout. And so what that meant was all the pre-draft camps and all the workouts for teams stopped. You couldn't go and work out for teams.
Gotcha.
And so what we were faced with, I was right on the border of being drafted. The NBA only has 2 rounds, 60 picks. I mean, I was right on that cut line of, am I going to be in? Am I going to be out kind of thing? Well, I couldn't go work out for these teams, which I was a specialist. I clearly know my giftings and I know my limitations. And I'm pretty self-aware as it relates to that. So I needed to go show that, hey, I can shoot the basketball. I can be every possession defender. There's ways that I can make contribution, but I needed to show them that.
Yeah.
And without being able to do that and meet with the teams, I didn't get drafted.
Gotcha.
So what started to happen was, are you going to go overseas and are you going to go play?
Yeah.
My wife and I got married that summer. Is that how we were going to start our life together? Is this what we're going to chase, this dream that has been placed on my heart to play professional basketball, which let's go play overseas and then maybe, come back and try to work out for NBA teams when things settle down. And what we found was, we knew Nashville was going to be our home. We knew Nashville was going to be our forever home. I just felt like I didn't want to wait on really taking advantage of what God had given me, which are these incredible relationships of these people that had been drawn to the story of the player Drew Maddux, but then they had gotten to know the human Drew Maddux. And so because of what they thought was, being a fan of this guy on the court, it created a relationship building opportunity where these men, these healthcare legends that have built Nashville, took an interest in me. And so got to put them on my reference list, and I got a job that I was not qualified for in the healthcare technology realm.
It was it's crazy how things come back to you. What I was searching for in my mind a minute ago goes perfect. You led me right back there. I tell my son's baseball team this all the time. It was something I learned as a player, and a pitching coach by the name of Todd Etler, who's a great friend of mine, was he kept me in professional baseball for at least 3 years, and I probably deserved to be there longer. But it was the first time I'd ever had a back spasm, and it was the first time I'd ever not been able to do something on the field, and it really bothered me. And he was just kind of just talking me through it. He said, Nick, he's like the biggest issue that I see in the future of the game of professional sports is you get paid based on performance. So if you're not 100%, guys will normally, in the old days, they would have played through something. Now they don't because it might affect future paydays, right? Yeah. And I was like, okay. And he said, look, at the end of the day, if you're playing a 100-game season, maybe 3 or 4 times you're going to have, if you're a pitcher, you'll have all your pitches, all your location, it feels good, it's perfect, you can't do wrong. Same thing as a hitter. He was like, the great players figure out how to get it done and be a great teammate when they don't have their A game, right? So I don't have all my pitches. He's like, that's when you actually pitch. Yeah. Right. And so for you to play that many games consecutively so those people probably saw that, your future employers. Yeah. Right. And they saw you battling through things and working through things. And consistency is just so important.
Absolutely. I think, one of the things we used to tell our players were, what do you do well when what you do well isn't going well? Oh. And so are you still able to make a contribution, to make an impact? Is your presence felt? Even on those nights when maybe you're a scorer, maybe you're you're the facilitator, you're the point guard, and maybe you have too many turnovers or too many missed shots or whatever is going. Can you still make an impact? Wow! Because this is the way I look at it. I don't compartmentalize excellence. I think it's comprehensive. I think it's something in every aspect of everything that you do. You should be making an impact. Now, do we have strengths? Clearly. Are we going to cultivate those strengths? Clearly. Are we going to try to leverage them for the good of the group? Clearly. Yeah. But you still have to figure out ways to make a contribution, even on those days when you don't have the juice or you don't feel well.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're a little off for whatever reason. And those are the people that I'm interested in. So yeah, back to the point. Could they see you still have passion and still play hard every single possession, even if the ball's not going through the net?
That's right.
Because that's easy. Those nights are easy. When that ball's going through and you got 15,000 people that are cheering you on, Nick, I mean, that's easy to get the juice and find the energy.
That's right.
But on those nights when you've missed 8, 9 in a row, and you got to come up with a stop to win against, Mississippi State on a Wednesday night, can you do it?
That's right. And on nationally televised.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And you're so frustrated and you're so disappointed and you're honestly angry at yourself because you can't believe all these hours of practice and it's not showing up to produce in a moment when it's needed.
Yeah.
Not only for yourself, but for your team. And so can you still do it?
That's right.
And I think that's one of the separating factors that I used to really, really try to teach our young people in this gap that exists between who they are today and who they're becoming. I call it the capability gap. So the capability gap, what keeps us from walking into our full potential are what just happened, the past, the negative play.
Yeah.
Our memory of what was.
That's right.
Or fear holding us back. But can you still step forward? Can you still step into what is next, even though what just happened wasn't in alignment with what you wanted?
He also taught me too, as a guy that was really great on the defensive side of the field or of the game. I was always wanting more playing time. And I had guys that made more money than I did, so they were the ones that got kind of first shot type thing. And same guy looked at me. He goes, "Do you really want to play that bad?" He was like, "Well, check it out. The guy that's on the mound out there, that guy's he pitches every 5th day. He's got his spot." He was like, "He has influence over who plays your spot." He was like, "So if he feels safe and he feels comfortable with you, and he feels like when he don't have his best stuff, but he's got you back there, he's in better shape, you can get a spot that way." And that changed everything for me, right?
Because you were a catcher.
That's right.
So what a great piece of advice.
Man, so like all of a sudden I got an extra day a week because one guy would rather pitch to me than somebody else. You know what I mean?
His confidence, his mindset, the way he had a sense of calm or
that's right.
being peaceful on the mound or whatever it was.
That's right. So by helping somebody else, it helped me.
Wow.
It was a great lesson.
Isn't that the amazing thing that happens, though? If we can ever get the perspective of others,
that's right.
The boomerang blessing that comes back to our own life and it fills up our own cup because to it. That's the way God made us.
That's right.
It even is scientifically proven. I mean, the serotonin levels and the endorphins that kick into your brain neurologically and flow through your body when you're doing something for somebody else, you're actually helping yourself. You think you're being selfless, but you're actually being selfish.
That's right. That's right. I'm nodding so hard that the headphones are falling off my head. So you had a great, obviously, I mean, it's kind of historical career at Vanderbilt in basketball. And then you're making. So I kind of wandered around aimlessly for a few years after baseball. I didn't really know. I have a big soft spot, and that's something I'm called to do is help people when they've played their senior season and it's been their entire life. And now they're not looking for a handout, they're looking for a hand up, and that's where I can kind of come in and help people figure out what they're actually called to do and how that was just a stepping stone to get there, right? So it took me a while. What was the transition from basketball to getting into healthcare?
Yeah, I knew being in Nashville, my family had some success in healthcare, so I was a little bit had some exposure to that world. Towards the end of my senior year, began to really call on some of those relationships. And back to any listener, especially young people, never say no to somebody that is reaching that handout. Maybe that lunch or that coffee you don't necessarily want to go to. You never know what's being lined up or what's being orchestrated. And so I knew I wanted to be in the world of healthcare just based on relationships and the city of Nashville, kind of being known as the Silicon Valley of for-profit healthcare. Yeah. I got connected with a company at the time in the early 2000s called Eclipsis. A guy named Harvey Wilson founded this technology where he commercialized Brigham and Women's system. And the significance is what we now know as common healthcare practice of electronic health record and orders being digitized by nurses and doctors. That whole process was being built in those days. So we got between a physician's pen and paper and we digitized the process of healthcare, the continuum of healthcare from patient point of care all the way through, the medicine being dispensed or the x-ray being ordered. And we timed the market perfectly.
Wow.
And had a ton of success, probably more than we deserved, but it was really timing a market, right place, right time, right technology. And we took advantage and attacked the market and had a super amount of fun and a lot of success.
It's a great example of, a wise man once told me, Nick, if you're not happy, if you measure your success by money and you don't have enough money, then you just haven't solved enough problems today. You haven't helped enough people today, right? Because if at the end of the day, the people that have the most money solve some of the world's biggest problems, right? Or solve the most problems in some instances.
Yeah.
All right. So going through healthcare, you mentioned there were 2 spiritual moments that were kind of life-changing for your trajectory in your roadmap, right? So when did the first one happen?
Yeah. So right in those years, so about 2003, 2004, 2005, by the world standards, having enormous success. I started as I hate to say just a salesperson, but I was just a sales associate, moved into vice president of the region, moved into president of a large division within our company at age 26.
Wow.
Really doing and achieving a lot.
Yeah.
But as great as that sounds, and people are like, man, that sounds amazing. I want that. Yeah, it was amazing. But as much as I was winning professionally, I was losing equally as much personally. I was in those days, because of the position I'd grown to, I had different people that were on my team. And so I would fly out into the markets and be with them for weeks at a time.
Gotcha.
And so I would leave most Sundays or Monday mornings and come back, Thursday night if I was lucky, or Friday morning or Friday. And that was not the life that I wanted to live. I didn't want to be a spectator dad. I wanted to be an active participant. My kids at the time, I had 3 daughters that were very young. My oldest was about to start kindergarten, and I knew that was kind of the line of demarcation of, am I going to be an absent dad or am I going to be a present dad?
Yeah.
My dad was very present, made a big time impact in my life. And so I began to think about and pray about, is this really what life's going to be about? Maybe there's a different rhythm to life that creates more balance for us.
I've never seen a headstone that said, "I wish I'd spent more time at work."
Right. There you go. And that's exactly how I felt. I was like, I'm winning in all these other ways, but I'm losing. I don't have the relationship, the time, the investment, the intentionality with my wife, my kids. And so as God could only organize, as I began to kind of think through, I was meeting with my pastor at the time, a guy named Carter Crenshaw, and we met for 52 weeks in 2005.
Wow.
And just really we're kind of just praying and considering what was next. Well, he gave me a book called Season of Life by Jeffrey Marks, which, if you know that story, it's about a football coach, a former Baltimore Colt turned football coach named Joe Ehrman, who coached at the Gilman School in Baltimore, Maryland. And he had just a unique approach to ushering boys into manhood through the gift of football. And I came alive reading this book. At the same time, I coached at Christ Presbyterian Academy middle school basketball. And during that time, I just came alive, Nick. I loved coaching basketball. I loved coaching these boys. They made lots of concessions so I could coach. Like, we practiced at 6 a.m. on Monday morning and then late Friday afternoon and on the weekends because of my schedule. And we changed some games around so that I could make sure I was there. And so I'm reading this book, I'm coaching this team, and just God, it became this awakening that this was what was next for me. And in the position of head boys varsity basketball coach at Christ Presbyterian Academy, where my daughter was going to go to kindergarten.
Wow.
This place where I'd coached and invested in these boys and fallen in love with this community. And stylistically and philosophically reading this book by Joe Ehrman, realizing, having guys like Jeff Forehand that was transformational in my life, I could bring this approach to the game of basketball to this school called Christ Presbyterian Academy, where, oh, by the way, my kids are going to be in school.
That's right.
And so my day job was, I grew into the title was Associate Head of School Advancement, which was the business practice or the selling side of independent school, which was admissions and communications and branding and marketing, capital initiatives, fundraising, all the ancillary programs. And then I coached basketball in the afternoon. And it was at a place where my kids were in school. And so you literally couldn't draw up a better scenario of going from what was feeling like I was losing, in every way personally and in my family, to this intersection of personal and professional that only God could intersect those lines together.
It's almost like, if you're just not happy doing what you're doing, you're not doing but what God put you here to do, right? Well, man, that's so. When it comes to the coaching part, so there was when the trick shots came alive on, you'll tell what started that, but there was, what stood out to me when I would watch those. It wasn't obviously the shots were cool.
Yep.
But as a guy that has been working with kids and teenagers and coaching for a long time, one of the hardest things to do is get them to not treat you like the principal in the principal's office. Right. You know what I'm saying? And what I would watch when it looked like it was so many kids, dozens if not over 100 kids or hundreds of kids watching these shots. Which I'm assuming you didn't make them all the first time, so there was a time investment. But when you would make one, what I noticed was the insanity that these kids did in celebration with you when you made it. Yeah. But then I would see a game and see how they looked at you as their coach, right? And like that is magical, man. Like that's one of the hardest things to accomplish. Yeah. And I'm curious, like, what are some of the ways in which you can do that?
Yeah,
I got to do it better.
Yeah, well, to be a great coach, you gotta be able to communicate, and to be able to communicate, you got to speak the language of your audience. Yeah, and so just continually figuring out ways to message, communicate, connect, to ultimately make an impact and to make a deposit into their hearts and their souls. You have to figure out a way to do that. So whether it was through coaching our team in the practice gym, what are you doing to constantly figure that out? Or what you're describing, which was in our basketball camp setting, what's the great way to get the attention of the kids that you're serving and to speak their language? Well, there was this thing called Dude Perfect or the Harlem Globetrotters, and there was all these things, and I could always figure out a way to put a ball in a hoop. It went back to the old McDonald's commercial. I don't know if you remember growing up, but you remember when Larry Bird and Michael Jordan played the extreme game of horse.
Yeah, and they were throwing it all across the city.
Right, yeah. So they're throwing it through the window and off the wall and, all these things. Well, going way back into my journey when I was a kid, when we would go to the gym and after our workouts, we would play extreme horse because of that commercial. Oh, wow. So I could always throw it off the wall, or I could spin the ball, or I could make it bounce a couple of times, or let's get up on the track and see if we can, throw it in the hoop. And we were always coming up and being creative with all these different ideas. Well, when the trick shot started, it started in my backyard in the pool with my two sons, first of all, who started to video them on their iPad and send it to their grandparents. That's where it all started, moving all the way through into a gym with 200 kids and just trying to figure out a way to connect with kids' hearts. Wow. And that's where it all started. That literally was the focus of it all. So then it was, okay, if we're going to connect with their hearts, how do we create joy and passion? And how do you create perseverance and resiliency? Yet, like you said, you're not going to hit it on the first try. So how are you making an adjustment? Or they see Coach Drew see something, and then it becomes a reality. And it took work. It took trial. It took error. It took mistake. It took failure. And all of that stuff rolled up together. They saw it play out in real time. And then when that ball goes through the net, it is magical, because it's like, oh my gosh, it didn't matter how old you are. It don't matter where you come from. It don't matter what's happened in your day. You see that ball stroke through that net, you lose your mind. Yes. You can't help but not to, because you've seen it miss, and you've seen it miss, and you've seen it miss, and then all of a sudden it goes in. Man. And you're talking about uncontrollable and unleashed passion. When that ball goes through that net, those kids, that's what you saw. And that's real and that's raw. There's no production value to that. That was all caught in the moment. Wow. In real time.
Well, that was, and you could feel it. And it was just such a cool thing to see. I mean, and those things went absolutely, they created so much joy. They went nuts online, absolutely nuts on so many different platforms. It was a great example to me too of, I don't like quitting things, but I will finish things. Yeah, right.
That's right.
And there's a big difference, even though they look and smell very similar. And, the beginning of something else is usually in the end of something. Right. It's that beginnings hide themselves in the ends all the time. So that was a great way to, miss until you do. And that joy, and where in their life are they missing?
it's every day.
That's right.
It's what you're dealing with every day. You're dealing with struggle and challenge and hardship. And can you get back up and do it again? Can you get back up and go again? And they saw a coach, an adult, somebody that they respected. I'm not going to say that they looked up to, but they respected, the basketball knowledge or the acumen or the resume or whatever brought them. Maybe it was the brand Nike that was the connector that brought us in that shared experience in that moment.
Yeah.
But we were able to teach them so much more of a valuable lesson than what they ever imagined.
Nike came out good on that deal.
Yeah, they did. And I'll tell you another thing that is a cool part to the story as well is, so I got a call one day early on in 2016 when they started to gain traction. It started to really build some momentum, and it was the Omni Hotel.
Okay.
And he called and Todd Rodemel, one of my dear friends now, back to it, how something can connect you in relationship and you develop a dear friendship. But he said, Drew, I have this idea. My family loves your shots. Like, we can't wait for them to come out each day, each week, however frequent we were doing them in those days.
It was frequent. I was blown away by that too.
So we were doing a shot of the day, and then we moved to a shot of the week because I couldn't come up with a new idea every day. But he said, my family loves it. We can't wait. Do you think if we created a media event, do you think you could make a shot off the roof of our hotel downtown? And I said, I've never met a shot I didn't like. I'm a shot maker, not just a shot taker. So let's go see if we can make a shot. And if we look foolish up on that roof and we can't make it, then you know what? We failed trying.
That's right.
We didn't fail waiting.
That's right.
And so anyway, we went down there in August of 2016, and on the 88th try, 23 minutes into this endeavor, with 2 helicopters flying, shooting real-time news, and all the news downstairs, and all of their employees there, and my family and all my players, and it became this neat event. That ball stripped through that net.
Wow.
And we lost our mind on that roof of that hotel. And the cool part to the story is, back to it, you just never know what can happen. Good Morning America the next morning picked that video up, and it became the biggest marketing effort ever done by the Omni Hotel and Resort brand, and it cost them $0.
Wow.
So is that not, that's pretty good return on investment.
Absolutely.
So since that time, we've become great friends, and I don't stay anywhere but the Omni Hotel. If there's one in a city anywhere, I'm obviously very loyal because of what they've done for me. And then we went back and broke a world record years later. Made the highest blindfolded shot ever recorded, 360 feet up on top of their roof,
Jeez.
all the way down to Fifth Avenue down below.
That's incredible. All right, so another thing that I'm fascinated with is, it's when you're driven in the business world. Unfortunately, a lot of times I call man-made money, right? God didn't make money, man made money. So money's just man's standard at the end of the day to some degree. And I look at that as that's man's report card after you get out of school. Right. A lot of times, you might find people that are chasing their passion, but they still can't provide at home. There's a thin line that you got to cross. And I think it's the exact same line that when I was referencing you and Coach Corbin being kind and gentle and great people until it's time to compete and you're not. Right. So, what advice would you have for some folks that there's a certain standard of living that they need or want for their family, but at the same time they're chasing a certain standard of happiness in their professional life and calling, and few people that I've found and ran across have been able to, at least what I can see, they've mastered it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting. And so, we have been very much ingrained in our stories when we were younger as men. Let's talk to men first, that there's 3 false identities to manhood. And I'm this isn't, any secret, but it starts on the playground, that somehow my athletic success makes me more of a man than the person standing next to me. So who gets picked first in the kickball game or scores the most in the flag football game on the playground, you're somehow more important or hold the power.
Yeah.
Moves into our teenage years, it's status and popularity and who you date and all of those kind of things. And then obviously when you move into adulthood, it's more about the boardroom. It's more about your title, your position, and all those things. And so ultimately what we try to do, and what I would tell anybody is when you're really living an authentic and whole life that is totally defined within your true self, there are two components. One, you're chasing a cause bigger than yourself, and two, you're in a horizontal relationship in pursuit of something that you can't do on your own. That's called healthy community and healthy connection. So I would say this is what I would say is there's really two circles of connection that exist within our lives. One is, the circle of influence that you have in your job, whether you're passionate, whether you love it, or whether you do not love it. And then there's the extrinsic circle that exists outside of your job and your career. That's your community, your family, things you're passionate about, whatever. I would say this, within those two circles, I would say do your job. Do your job. J being jump in, O being own your gift, B being build your legacy within those. So obviously the New England Patriots built a franchise of success on 3 words: do your job. And so we've taken that as a framework, if you would, and I teach people out about what it means to jump in, what it means to own your gifts, and we can get into any of this if you ever want to get into this, and then what it means to build your legacy and start chasing your legacy. But within even the construct of the circle of connection of your career, your job, what you're doing daily, if you're punching that clock, you're still figuring out ways to jump in. There's still gifts that you can offer, and there's still ways that you can build the elements of your eulogy rather than your resume, which is speaking life into your legacy.
Oh, man.
Equally as such, obviously that's easy outside of that. But you got to make a livelihood too. You got to get a paycheck. You got to provide for your family. So as you're doing that, I would just encourage anybody within that circle of whatever that is, that circle of influence, still seek out ways that you're all in. You're passionate. You're figuring out ways to be excellent every day, be an everyday guy or girl, to still own your gifts, and gifts being your talent, your purpose, and your mission, all in alignment at the gift convergence circle of the 3 circles of what your gifting is.
Yeah.
And Nick has something that Drew doesn't have, and Drew has something that Nick doesn't have, and it's both needed.
Sure.
Those strengths are needed.
Absolutely.
And then ultimately, how do you move forward in that continuum to breathing life into the elements of what you want to be remembered for?
Yeah.
And then start lining up those steps every day, and every step and every word and every thought should be in direct alignment of what that presents.
Yeah.
And nothing's by accident. So whatever job you find yourself in, whatever career, whatever office, whatever people you're working with, whoever, the way you look at them, whatever your mindset is around those things, that you start to figure out ways to shift that and start to figure out ways that you can be all in. You can bring your giftings to the table as it speaks to the legacy of what you want to be remembered for.
It's, and maybe you're doing something that you don't feel like is that, but like that's necessary to be able to get the opportunity to do what it is that you want to do.
Right.
So I never once dreamed of becoming an insurance agent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that opportunity that somebody was kind enough to give me over the course of the next 10 years has opened up all the doors.
Yep.
And I wouldn't have anything if and honestly, I learned more from from doing that than I had probably learned in my whole entire lifetime that I could reference and use today with what we're doing. And like, I don't think anybody who stands up on career day, I'd love to go to every career day in the history of the world for 1 year. And I bet there would be 0 kids that stand up and be like, I'm going to be an insurance agent when I grow up.
Yeah. I think, it's one of those things that if you want to be ready for the next level, be excellent in this level. If you want to be ready for the next season, be excellent in this season. Yeah. Dominate today. Be a champion today. Otherwise, you're not going to set yourself up for what's next because you're not ready. You're not being a proper steward of what you're given right now. So if you want to be ready, if you want to view that ceiling as the next floor of your life, then dominate the day. Be excellent every day and invest. Like I said, be passionate, be all in, own your gifts. What is your contribution that you can make? And start moving towards the legacy of what you want to be remembered for. And I promise, back to the point, love people, along the way, and you'll be amazed at the boomerang blessing that comes back, and you'll find yourself ready for that next season or that next level.
Man, and I kind of came up a little bit almost like villainizing money. Money's bad. If you have a lot of it, you should be doing it more for others, and so on and so forth. And then I learned too, it was actually one of my most influential people in my adult life, Pastor Roger Patton, who we were texting yesterday. But one time I was very driven as a businessman, felt, I had some stuff to prove to myself and maybe some other people too. and but I was conflicted with, I wanted to serve all these things. He said, Nick, you can serve in two ways with your, with your time or with your money. He was like, dude, he's like, look at our congregation. There's a lot of people serving with their time. We need some more people to serve with their money. And I was like, okay. And then I learned later that like money's not bad. It just kind of like magnifies who you are. If you're a good person, you might be a better person with money. Yeah. And if you're a bad person, you're probably a worse person with money.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, and we're both faith-driven people.
Yes.
It's all his.
That's right.
So when you change the perspective, it's not about me. It truly is not about me. So whatever those resources are, if it is money, time, network, relationship, social status, influence, whatever it may be, are you a great steward of what's been given?
We're born to struggle, and the struggle is where you find your faith. And that's true with money too. Like in the old days, I would, when it came time to the offering plate was being passed around.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it was like, oh, we can't afford to do that. What we found out later is that we couldn't afford not to do it.
There you go.
And that was just a test of our faith. And the more that we put, the more we fed our faith, and the more that it was just like, you know what, He will provide. Man, like we never really had to worry about money once we figured that part out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's amazing how all these different things are just examples of your faith gets tested every day. And in so many ways that you don't even realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I think today too, and this is back to raising kids and coaching kids, the new currency of the day is influence. It's not even money, and back to the point of the devices in their hand, and they would rather chase status and being known by audiences of people that they'll never be in relationship with, other than making an investment in their community and maybe even risking if that means you're known less. And it's what are you chasing? Are you chasing significance? Or are you chasing success?
Yeah.
That's two different things. Significance and success is two different things. And the world is going to tell you this is what it means to have the world at your fingertips. And God's trying to call you out of that and say, no, I'm asking that you release what that is in your hands and you live life more open-handed than closed-gripped.
Man. You have, I mentioned 3-time author. And first of all, people that want to get those books, your website is the best place.
Yeah, or Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble, any of the places that you can get them, electronically. Yeah.
Gotcha. And you said one of them was the I guess it's the third one is an audio book, right?
Yeah, it's just a new ebook that I kind of did a couple of weekends ago. I have all this content. I write every day, so it's a daily practice.
Okay.
And I've written 365 leadership lessons the last year. And so I just wanted to test and just package them together. And so I did 20 lessons of leadership, of being the leader you're called to lead, to be.
Wow.
And I put it out there, and I've been just floored by the response.
Yes.
It's been really, really cool.
Well, and another thing too that we were talking about being the nice guy and the fierce competitor at the same time. You've carried that into your business world by choosing people over profits.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the people are what bring the profits.
Right.
They drive the profits.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's just an inward approach, outward approach to commerce. If you love your people, if you take care of your people, if you create trust with your people, and ultimately your people trust the organization, that an inward, outward approach in terms of the success you're going to have in the guests that you serve, in the communities that you do business in, it's going to continue to flow. And so what we've tried to do is not make it an either or proposition, but it is a both and, that you can be transformational in your business practice, but you can be excellent in your business practice, but you can also provide programs and path and ways that people can feel loved, that they can feel respected, that they can be seen and heard and valued, and know that they're part of an organization that cares deeply for them. And as a result of that, they're going to go love the guests, and they're going to make sure they serve the guest, and an excellent business practice is going to flow outwardly from that.
Some would argue, well, the profits bring the people, Nick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but if you don't know the people, you don't know who the greatest people are to get to surround yourself with, right? So, and everything that we do is for the people. There wouldn't be no profits if it wouldn't, because some people benefited
That's right.
from something, right?
Yeah, because we're in the furniture business, so people would think, okay, you're a product, driven business. No, we're a people-driven business that sells a product. So don't confuse what this is. There are people every day that are coming to our stores that are ultimately representing our brand, representing our core value sets. They're the ambassadors and the gatekeepers of what we hold dear, which are the truths that the organization was built on.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, they're going to serve people that are going to come through those doors that are looking to create memories and moments and experiences in their homes. So we're not just a product company. We're a life moment creator of people in their homes. That we're not just selling products to houses. No, we're creating experiences in homes.
Wow.
of moments that you're going to remember the rest of your life. So these are rooms and pieces of furniture where you're going to gather around the Christmas tree, or you're going to watch March Madness, or you're going to have a dinner around the dinner table, and you're going to share hopes and dreams. And there's going to be tough days and good days and hard days and struggles. But ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to facilitate life moments that matter.
Wow.
And that's what we're trying to do.
Man. All right, so they're probably saying, "Hold on a minute. I thought he was. I thought he was working at CPA." And so, all right, so that kind of brought us to current, right? So, how long have you been with DSG, and kind of like, what's exciting about what's next in there?
Yeah, so it's going on 2 years. And people once again thought I was crazy when I left healthcare to go into coaching. Back to it, you said there was 2 pivotal moments in my story. This was the second. We had ascended with great success, obviously as a school at Christ Presbyterian Academy, with the job that I did every day in terms of our admission process, our enrollment, our retention, every measurement, fundraising, capital initiatives, all of those things were great. And oh, by the way, in terms of the basketball success, we won 83% of our games in 15 years. Jeez. Multiple state championships. 50-plus players went on to play college athletics. We had way more success than we deserved. And yet here I was going to step away from that to go join the Dufresne Spenser group. And so it just was, once again, it was one of those moments. It was a season really coming out of COVID that I was able to do some reflective work and really pray and consider and meditate on what was next. I'm getting close to 50. I'm getting old, Nick. I got to recognize that. And I think I have more in the tank. I think I have more to give. I have all these experiences and all these gifts and these talents. Yeah. And I just really felt like I had grown to the edge of my growth, and really was looking for.
You finished.
God, I was like, God, what's next look like? Is there next? I'm willing, once again, put my chips in the middle of the table, trust you with all of this.
Yeah.
I don't know what next looks like. I don't know who it is or what it is or how it is, but I know you, God, can make a way. And I know that I'm going to trust you in this. And you're calling me to say, I want to grow you in a way in terms of your faith, your intellect, in terms of your emotion, in terms of what you sacrifice. I'm willing to take you to the next level of this, but you got to trust me. God brought a dear friend into my life named Chad Spenser, and he's the CEO, and he's the founder of the Dufresne Spenser Group. And his family had moved to Nashville. They had joined our school community. We had become great friends. Our wives became great friends. And he began to tell me about his company and just what they try to do in the lives of the people they serve. And then he began to say, hey, I need more people to join me in this. I can't do this alone. I can't just do it with our executive team. We need somebody that wakes up every day, and that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about the hearts and the souls of our people. And I began to get excited about that. We were at J. Alexander's in Cool Springs in Franklin, and we began to really talk about and to consider and pray on what this could look like. And a couple of weeks later went by, and he came back with a job description, the Executive Vice President of People Development. Wow. And that's the current the title that I hold and the reality in the company that I get to serve every day.
Man, that is absolutely incredible. And kudos to those guys. That's not many people are going to do that.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, three things had to happen. So first of all, healthcare wise, I had no experience. The job that I ultimately had initially,
Yeah.
you had to have a minimum of 5 years healthcare sales experience. So it took a person that saw something in me that was willing to take a risk.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I went to Christ Pres Academy. It's hindsight bias. We know the rest of the story, but initially, I'd never coached a program. I'd never worked at a school. I wasn't an educator by trade. That was a risk that it took somebody that saw something in me.
Sure.
And then thirdly, CPA to Ashley Home Furniture, the Dufresne Spenser Group. It took Chad Spenser saying, I see something in you, and I think you can make an impact in our organization. So along the way, back to it, just the reminder to all of us and the encouragement, you never know who you're seeing and who's seeing you.
Man.
And so I just want to have eyes every day, Nick, to have my eyes opened up to the possibilities that God's going to bring people into my story that need exactly what I have to offer. And I pray that he brings people into my story in my time of need that will offer me exactly in that moment in time what is needed for me to move to the next level in my process.
Man, and now you're also in the broadcasting booth at your alma mater, right?
Yeah. So I before I went into coaching, I've been passionate about about broadcasting, and it's fun to have back the headphones and the microphone and to be back broadcasting. So it connects me in college basketball. I did all the high school local games here, so it got me back in the high school basketball scene, and then. Obviously I've been partnered with Nike for 16 years in our basketball camps. I mean, we'll surpass 20,000 kids in the Middle Tennessee area will go through our basketball camp platform. I mean, that's ministry. Yeah. That's an incredible opportunity to connect with kids. They think they're coming for a basketball camp, but it's just disguised as a way to really cultivate life skills that will transcend anything that they do.
That's right. Talk to me a little bit about the Elevated and Excavated books.
Yeah, so Elevated was a co-author, Virgil Herring, who's one of the leading golf performance coaches in the world. Coached several PGA Tour pros, and I think he's over 300 people under his tutelage have gone on college scholarships. I mean, just an incredible golf coach. He and I dreamed about coming together and writing a book about really what makes great people great. So we just started there. We started with a blank whiteboard. And we said, what do great people, whether they're an artist, a musician, a coach, a performer, a CEO, an entrepreneur, what do they have in common? We listed over 200 attributes that we thought the greats have in common. And we narrowed that focus down to 50 words. And we spent 50 straight days where he journaled about that word and I journaled about that word. We were accountable to each other. We would send our journal entries to each other. And then we did that for 50 straight days. And those 50 straight days became the book called Elevated. And the idea for the book was there was an entry from Coach Drew, an entry from Coach Virgil, and then there was a blank page where the book became their book. Wow. So how can we speak into the discipline of journaling for you, where we're talking about perseverance or resiliency or whatever the word was, you're able to really speak to what does that mean to you?
Right.
Then we did 50 podcast episodes. So I'm a podcaster too.
Yes,
not quite this, but this is amazing. But we spent 50 straight episodes speaking about each chapter so we could go deeper and put more color on those words. So that was Elevated. It went on to become the #1 leadership and coaching on Amazon for several weeks. We were blown away by the success. So during COVID, as all of us were trying to figure out, what does really this period of time in our lives mean, we wrote Excavated, and we picked out 50 words that really you and I would say have a negative connotation to performance. But maybe it's setting you up for something bigger. Maybe it's digging deeper to go further than you even thought that you could go. And that's where the concept of excavated came from. So digging deeper to go further than what you once imagined.
Wow. Man, I mean, it's there's so much gold. There's so much good. Folks, I would definitely recommend those two books, as well as checking out the podcast episodes about it. That's the greatest thing about books and podcasts is like they basically live forever, man. You know what I mean? So like, I think it was Grant Cardone who was saying, whatever book in his, like 10X was like his 7th or 8th book or something like that.
Wow.
And he's like, the first 6 or 7 or however many flopped until 10X hit. And then all of a sudden those became bestsellers and stuff, because how that works.
Yeah. It was one of those things too. writing a book was always on a bucket list. And so it's just one of those dreams that was put in my heart for a reason.
Yeah.
Didn't know, Nick, if one person would read the book. It wasn't even about that. It was more about my own personal process and the process of discipline, of chasing another dream, of taking me to my next level of what next looked like for me.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it's a gift for other people, that's just a blessing, because it meant so much to me in my process of taking me to the next iteration, 2.0 version of who I was becoming than I ever imagined. And so to do it now twice and now a third time with this mini ebook, it's just crazy to look back, man. And that's what I want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
You can, people used to say, yeah, that's a lie. You can't do anything you put your mind to. No, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. Does it take hard work? Yes. Does it take sight to see it? Yes. Does it take perseverance and resiliency to get up when you fail and struggle and challenge and hardship presents itself? Absolutely. But you can do it. You have everything within your DNA, within your makeup, within your being. You have everything that it takes. Now go do it.
I think it's my buddy, former Commodore great on the baseball team, Hunter Bledsoe.
Oh, I love Hunter.
He said it to we coached together. Our kids are the same age, and he said it to our kids one day, and it just like blew me away. He said, friends, he said, life is fair. Everybody's price is just different.
Woo.
Yeah. Oh, and dude, I've quoted that multiple times, and people roast me on that because and people are gonna be like, oh, it's not fair. Dude, it is.
Yeah.
It's fair. Everybody's price is just different.
Yeah.
And not everybody's willing to do what it takes.
That's right.
For whatever reason.
Right. It could be whatever is holding you back.
That's right.
So whatever those chains are, start to see those.
Yeah.
And what are those obstacles that are holding you back from ultimately becoming your most true self?
Yeah.
And step out of the shadows of that secret voice that holds you back. Step out of this pursuit of this ideal status self that we all are chasing.
Yeah.
And step forward into this true self of who you're created to be, and go live it. Go do it.
My dad told me when I was struggling as an athlete, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it's my time to be done. And he just, I don't even know if he remembers saying this, but he just kind of said, sounds to me, and Dad was old school and kind of the school of hard knocks a little bit, so he got softer with age. And but he just kind of, in a calmest voice ever, he just kind of said, it sounds like you need to push your limits. He's like, because you're the one that set them.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And that was like,
that's so good.
Oh, absolutely. And I wonder if he remembers saying that, but it's like, man, absolutely. He's like, because all this stuff, he's like, and then he said, and of course, then I would immediately would say, I would start defending all the reasons that I couldn't do it. And he goes, now you're fighting for your limits.
Yeah. Fighting for your limits.
That's right.
Oh, I love that.
I know. It really stuck with me. And you never know when you might say something that just changes somebody's life.
No, and listen, you'll love this, because this is from Don Meyer himself. My life mission statement is 4 words: pick up the trash.
Oh, man.
Leave people, places, and things better than the way you found them. How do you do that? Love the next one in front of you. Do the next right thing right.
Don Meyer was the best.
Just gold in that. And so I've taken that and applied it as a mission statement of my life. And so with that, I'm pretty optimistic. I know when people could say, yeah, Drew, that's blue sky and Pollyanna. No, I'm optimistic to believe that at any moment in time, any word spoken, any word said, any conversation, discussion, or interaction you have with another human being, in a defined moment, could be life-changing for that person.
That's right. And being there, when I learned about gratitude and how powerful that is, and I'm standing in church one day, and the hymn we're singing is "Count Your Blessings," and one by one and all that stuff, and I realized right then and there, I was like, you can't be in a bad mood when you're grateful.
You can't.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. That's if you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
Just what are you grateful for?
Yeah,
if you can't be grateful for anything, what's the worst thing that can happen is you don't wake up tomorrow.
Right. You're living.
That's
You're
right.
breathing.
That's right.
You got a chance.
That's right.
You always have a chance. And so, one of the disciplines I try to start every day with is I start in a gratitude journal, in a gratitude posture of celebration. And I start just thinking about, it's amazing how it positions you for the day.
Yeah.
You start thinking about the people first, and then the places and the experiences that have happened.
Mm.
And you start to celebrate that. And then I take the next step of that, and I write 3 handwritten notes every day and I send 10 texts every day, just random texts of people that have made an impact, or maybe it's somebody I just met.
Yeah.
But you start to move into life from a position of gratitude. It will change your life.
Man.
I mean, because every day it's been proven, and you know this because you study this kind of stuff, but around 40 to 60,000 thoughts occur in a human mind every day. And it's been proven that 80% are negative. So every 4 out of 5 thoughts you have are bent in a negative fashion.
Yeah.
So if you're not positioned from a posture of gratitude, how can you grab hold of positivity if you don't have the foundation of appreciation?
You got to have some balance and give
That's
yourself a fighting chance, That's incredible, man. Like, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't do it to you, but I could keep you here all day long. And sometimes the hardest thing for me to do is when we get rocking and rolling is to figure out how to bring these things to a close. Have I left anything out? What have I missed? I've got my cheat sheet here. I'm looking at my stuff. This has been awesome.
No,
man.
I just want to tell you, just thank you for what you're doing too. I mean, thank you for advancing goodness in the world. Thank you for this passion, the vision to even have, the Hitstreak and the podcast and all that you're doing, all the ways you guys are blessing people. I mean, the team here, this place, it's amazing. It's an honor to be with you. It was an honor to be asked, and just very thankful for our stories intersecting with each other.
Well, we're gonna do it again. We're gonna do it again for sure. I love bringing people back. The episode that we shot earlier, it was his second time back,
that's
right?
so
So I love doing that because it's cool. Sometimes you leave some things unfinished, or hey, we're gonna check back in, and it's a good time. So
the answer is yes.
Again,
just
absolutely.
Just tell me when it is.
Boom! I can't wait, man. Well, once again, folks, we've been hanging with the one and only Drew Maddux, the EVP of the Dufresne Spenser Group, 3-time author, world record holder of trick shots, baby. You've seen him on the news everywhere. Husband, father, fellow Christian, awesome stuff, man. And who knows what the next chapter is for you, right?
And that's right. Just open-handed and ready to say yes to what God calls you to.
Absolutely. And don't waste an opportunity either, because they come in all different shapes and sizes.
Amen.
Man, anything else you'd like to leave the folks with today? I highly recommend you guys checking out his books once again on Instagram, Drew Maddux 45 and CoachDrewMaddux.com.
No, just thanks for letting me be here with you guys, and certainly look me up anywhere on social media anyway. I love to interact, so no message is a bad message. I want to hear from anyone and everyone. If there's anything that we can ever do for anybody to serve them, please reach out to us.
Fantastic. Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.